Tony with Culinary Seasons. Today I'm gonna take apart a pork shoulder. It's a bone in. I'm gonna use part of it for a grind for later use. The other part I'm going to dice up for a chili verde. So I just wanted to go through the process of breaking it down. I'm gonna trim the fat off the top. I'm gonna save that fat in case I need to add for the grind later. But we'll get going and take it apart. As I'm taking it apart, I'm looking at the fat, making sure there's not any pieces that are like silvery, like this part in the middle here. This one you don't really want in a grind. It will grind up, but this tends to be tougher than the fat cap that's on top. So as we go, I'm looking at that, and I'm taking apart the fat where it's at, where it looks like it's not that silvery skin, and I'll trim some of that off too, just for the grind part, so I don't have excess amount of that silver skin going into the grind. So the bone in this is on two sides on the shoulder. It's gonna run along right here, and it's gonna run along this side. So it's not really a T shape, but it does have some curves to it. And so I'm going to trim along there and out to the edge first to be able to pull out the bone eventually as we cut. So I'm just going to follow that bone line, and it'll stop when if you hit a cross piece down in there. Like on this side, it's definitely a cross piece right here. So I'll just trim that. And you see his little pocket right here. So I'll trim down along this direction where the bone runs, along the top here. You can hear I'm hitting that right there, so I just want to trim along and cut this pocket out of the bone. And the fat lines will tell you pretty much where things run. In most cuts of meat, you'll see a fat line running along at different areas, and those are areas you most likely want to cut along to be able to get the most meat out of the bone, away from the bone as possible. That bone runs all down here, and I did miss some fat or miss some meat on there. Once I get it out, I'll trim that up, throw it into the grind mix as well. So as I'm going, in this case, I'm running the knife along the bone to try to get as much of that meat as possible. So there's some meat up top here, same here. I'll work on this once I get the bone out, and since I'm using it for grind, definitely want to get as much of that out as possible. So in this case, the bone runs back out to the end, like I talked about originally. So once again, I'm just going to try to get as much meat out of there as possible. Scraping it out is a possibility with your knives as well. Just be careful when you're doing that. Don't want to cut yourself. So there's the first chunk got off of there. Clean that up, get as much out of there as I can. Do that at the end. So let's put that right there. So since half of this I'm going to do for a grind, just guesstimating out of what I took out of there. So probably grind that half, this half here, since there's a good amount of fat in that. And then I've got a leaner piece here. It still has fat involved, but I'll dice that up for the chili verde. So look for like 1-inch pieces on that. So we got these cut for chili verde. Nice dice on those. Now for the grind, I'm gonna just cut this into some strips that'll fit into my meat grinder. So I will separate it along here too. You can see how that fat just wants to separate out. Gives you that line to cut. And it pulls right apart. So I will take out some of this fat like I was talking about. Use that cleaner fat here for the grind. This piece here is a little bit of a kind of a marbled piece as I was looking at it. So I don't want to cut away too much, but there's this fat that runs here. I'll just trim that up. Didn't lose too much meat on that piece. Get the meat out of here. Just saying before, use the tip of your knife, go along that bone, get as much meat out of there as you can. I do have a piece of meat still attached here, so we're going to go down that bone line. As I'm going, you can see I'm pulling the meat away, but I'm also slicing along that bone to get as much meat out of there as possible. You can see in there. Got the fat I'm going to use with the grind if I need it. That'll be determined when I grind the meat. And then I've got the strips I cut for the grinder, the dice for a chili verde or whatever you want to use that for. It's really easy to do. I know I went kind of fast, but good way to save some money buying a bigger piece and cutting it down for what you need.